Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Obviously this video will reveal the gender of our baby. I wanted to do something special for the reveal and I'm very excited to share it with everybody, but especially with my family who are probably watching this right now. Everybody has been waiting and waiting to find out the gender, and finally here is the video that will reveal the gender. So before the gender reveal, let me tell you a story. So let's begin. So one day there was a young girl living on this planet and she was born in Poland in 1994. In 2006 she moved in England and she was only 12. She couldn't even speak English, but after 2 years she started talking and talking and talking and her mouth never shut since then. She lived in England half of her life and that's where she grew up.
Elsewhere, on the other side of the planet, there was a boy in a small city called Darwin in the country of Australia, where he lived most of his life. He thought he knew what he wanted in life, but really, he was just lost himself. When it came to his future, he wasn't sure at all and questioned it a lot. This boy's name is Josh. People around him were settling and getting on with their lives, but Josh, he was just stuck. He thought, was it time to buy a house? Or was it time to buy a fancy car? Like, what next? His biggest question in life was simply, what do I do now?
That young girl didn't like her life at all. She felt stuck in constant unhappiness, same day routine every day, living a normal life and going to a job that she didn't enjoy every day, which at the time was waitressing. So one day an idea came into her head to just pack a backpack and leave. Maybe she can be happy then and finally free, which is all that she wanted. She had no money at all, so what she did is she saved and sold all that she could to leave soon on a journey to Southeast Asia, starting with her first destination, which was Thailand. And did I mention she left all on her own? She was crazy and brave, and she was me.
Josh, feeling like he was stuck and still questioning about his future, he was working 2 jobs and working really hard because that's what he thought he needed to do to be successful at the time. He thought he was happy, making good decent money, working 2 jobs. He worked full-time as a qualified boilermaker welder and also waited and was a bartender at a restaurant as part-time at night. He enjoyed it at first, but after all he really just had enough and realised he wasn't happy with what he was doing, and this made him feel a lot worse about his future. When not working, Josh was very easily influenced by the people around him in life and just in general. Overthought and cared too much about what people thought about him. It wasn't until she came into his life, Miriam, that had opened his eyes and made him realise that he wasn't 100% being himself.
So I met Josh in Australia in 2017 on my working holiday visa. It was a kind of a spontaneous trip to Australia where I decided to work and make some more money to continue my dreams of travel. I found a job very fast, which was obviously my main motive for travelling Australia. And you know what? I met Josh there and he was doing exactly the same job as me. At the time, I really wanted to move out of my old flat and find somewhere new to live. And it happened to be at the perfect time because Josh actually needed someone to move into his flat. So he asked me if I needed a house. And obviously, I said yes because it was just a perfect situation. So I wasn't planning to stay for long because after all, I wanted to travel the country and not stay in one place for too long. After a few weeks of living and working together with Josh, we also started doing activities outside work. So we started going out to a few parties together and having a drink. We also saw some beautiful sunsets and even went to a seaside as a day trip. So we soon realized that we enjoyed each other's company and we loved spending time with each other. And this was the beginning of a beautiful story. Josh was very inspired by my travels and me leaving home, so he finally decided to change his life as well and come on an unknown adventure with me. What I did is I bought a 4-wheel drive car, which we called it home, for the next 2 months. Every day we were in a new location, seeing waterfalls, climbing different rocks and going on hikes. However, we also argued a lot for the first few weeks. As you can imagine, from spending time together sometimes to spending time together 24/7 was a big surprise. But we truly also had an amazing time. We made fire every evening and we watched the stars every night. And let's not forget, we got bitten by a lot of mosquito, which was absolutely horrible. However, we quickly realized that we were running out of money very fast. Did we have a plan B? No, not really, so we quickly had to come up with one. We need to get jobs fast. So what did we do? We went to another city that was very close, and it happened to be a city called Alice Springs. Well, would I really call it a city? No, not really. It was kind of like a very, very small village with pretty much nothing to do. So all of our time we spent doing nothing, just living in the car and being really, really bored. So after 2 weeks of our amazing travel, it was kind of time to stop. We had to find jobs soon, and we started getting really depressed because we realized that now it was time to work and we really didn't want to. We had no shower at all, no toilet, and we were slowly starting to run out of food as well. After just 1 week of searching for new jobs, we happened to find one really fast, and you know what? It was actually in the same place together. Again, the car was still at home all of this time. After living in the car for so long and working at the same time, I stopped being happy and I finally told Josh I'm leaving. And yes, that was without Josh. It was a very difficult time for both of us trying to figure out our feelings towards each other. However, I was convincing myself that this whole journey was just a time-passing adventure. With all of this confusion, unhappiness and discomfort of living in a car, finding out couldn't happen at a worse time. And you know what? I found out I was pregnant. I actually cried for a few days, and I guess I considered myself as a really bad mother already. And I knew I wasn't ready to have a baby at all. All I wanted to do in life was travel, but I decided to keep the baby, and Josh was actually happy about it, and he said, let's go. So this decision has forced us to leave the tiny city with a stacker. It was time to look after me, but where do we go from here? We had nowhere to go, and not even enough money to go anywhere far, but we decided to go to Brisbane. Josh said he had a family there, and that was our only choice at that time. So we said our goodbyes and head off on a large trip. So the trip to Brisbane took us exactly 5 days. Well, technically Josh did all of the driving because I wasn't feeling very well. What I did is I just laid up the back seats and pretty much slept most of the time because I was feeling very nauseous. I remember seeing so many kangaroos while driving. It was really incredible actually. And I was also eating a lot of blueberries because that was the only acceptable food for my stomach. So I decided that the best thing for me to do was to give birth and go through pregnancy in England, where I felt most safe and I had a lot of support from my family. My pregnancy really wasn't going great. I had a terrible heartburn, stomach pains, depression, and I felt really lonely and disappointed in myself. I was still feeling like I destroyed my life and my dreams to travel the world. After my family's support, I decided to book a ticket back to England on 10th of October, and I left Australia and I left Josh. October the 12th, 2017. I have finally reached 13 weeks and I miscarried my baby. It was a horrible heartbreak. I was devastated. Even though I wasn't ready for a baby then, I couldn't understand why has God decided to do this to me. I blamed myself for a while. Was it the plane journey? Was it the stress? Was it depression? Why me? After this long decision of keeping my pregnancy, stopping my travels and coming back to England, I lost my baby. I was in a really bad state after that for a few months. Without my best friend Josh, I couldn't figure out my life, my motive. What will I do now? I have no money and I had no friends. I suppose the long distance relationship made me really miss Josh. I questioned whether I was in love or not a lot. I questioned whether I want to carry on being in a relationship. I didn't even know what I wanted from life anymore. I was truly lost. I felt like a failure. In December 2017, Josh has finally arrived. I've missed him so much. I felt very weird from being around him 24/7 to not seeing him for over 2 months. My partner was finally back. And I realized that this was something I had to do, have some time away from Josh and figure out my feelings. And a few months later, we moved in together to our first flat. It was actually pretty strange because we were always flatmates, living in people's houses or living in the car. Then we found some jobs, separate this time, and we organized our lives and we figured out our dreams. And the dream was to travel the world together this time. Now all we needed to do was to save some money and leave. But when? That's the question we struggled to understand. Unknown dream created very big confusion and depression again. I had a great job, great life, amazing boyfriend, but I seemed to be very empty all the time. What was I missing? I became very open to my future and I actually started to pray to God for His will in my life because I didn't know it at all anymore and I was so confused. and in May 2018, which was a few months ago, I found out I was pregnant. I'm grateful to God for giving me this beautiful gift at a most perfect time, and you're about to find out the gender of our rainbow baby.